More than 4,800 individuals may have been victims of child sex abuse in the Portuguese Catholic Church, and 512 alleged victims have already come forward to speak out, an expert panel looking into historic abuse in the church said on Monday. Senior Portuguese church officials had previously claimed that only a handful of cases had occurred. Senior clergymen sat in the front row of the auditorium where panel members read out some of the most harrowing accounts of alleged abuse included in their report. There were vivid and shocking descriptions. The head of the Portuguese Bishops' Conference, Bishop Jose Ornelas, said church authorities were studying the panel's 500-page report before giving an official response. He says, quote, "We have seen and heard things we cannot ignore. It's a dramatic set of circumstances, and it won't be easy to get over it," close quote. The Independent Committee for the Study of Child Abuse in the Catholic Church, set up by Portuguese bishops just over a year ago, looked into alleged cases from 1950 onward. Portuguese bishops are due to discuss the report next month. The panel regretted that the Vatican had taken so long to grant access to church archives. Permission came only in October of 2022, giving the panel just 3 months to go through written evidence of abuse. The statute of limitations had expired on most of the alleged cases, and only 25 allegations were passed on to prosecutors, the panel said. The report, criticized by some as long overdue, came 4 years after Pope Francis gathered church leaders from around the world at the Vatican to address the sex abuse crisis in the church. That meeting was held more than 30 years after the first scandal erupted in Ireland and Australia, and 20 years after it hit the United States. Bishops and other Catholic superiors in many parts of Europe at the time continued to deny clergy sex abuse existed or insisted on giving it little weight. Pedro Strecht, a psychiatrist who headed the panel in Portugal, said it estimates the true number of its victims during the period as between at least 4,800 to 4,815. That extrapolation was made based on potential other victims mentioned by those victims who came forward. The panel is not publishing the names of the victims, the identities of the alleged abusers, or the place the abuses allegedly happened. However, it is to send the bishops by the end of the month a list of alleged abusers who are still active in the church. The final report includes a separate and confidential annex of all the names of the church members reported to the committee that is being sent to the Portuguese Bishops' Conference and to the police. The Portuguese church hasn't said whether it intends to pay compensation to any of the victims. The 6-person committee, including the psychiatrist, a former Supreme Court judge, as well as a social worker, said that 77% of the abusers were priests and other perpetrators being linked to the church institutions. It added that 77% of the victims didn't report the abuse to the church officials, and only 4% went to the police. Most of the abuse took place when the victims were in early adolescence, and it said that 48% of those who came forward had spoken about the abuse for the first time. Most of the alleged victims were male, though some 47% were female, the report said. It said there were places in Portugal, such as some seminaries and religious institutions, that were quote-unquote real black spots for abuse. The panel recommended the statute of limitations on such crimes be extended to at least 30 years from the current 23 years. For Headlines with a Voice, this has been the Lockhart News Brief.